I hate when I get a new knitting notion that I think is going to change my life and is a big fail. Recently, I got this freebie, so I can't complain too much, but I got this in an order that I received, and it's a counting chain. You use this to keep track of the number of rows that you knitted, and the way it works is really simple. You put the end of this on your knitting needle, preferably between stitches so it's locked in, and every time you come to it, you just move the chain up, right? And there's 10 of these links. So when you get to the end, I know that I've knitted 10 rows. I can place a stitch marker in my work to indicate that. Seems great, right? So what's the problem? The problem is the way this is made. It has these jump rings, and the rings have these little gaps in them, and it kept snagging my yarn. So this was a fail. But it's okay, because I can do the exact same thing with locking stitch markers that I already have. So I'm working on this triangle shawl, and every few rows there is this pearl ridge textured detail. So to keep track of my work without having to use stitch counters or an app on my phone, I made a counting chain with my locking stitch markers. My first one in the chain is this green bulb pin, so I know where I've started. And then this red one here indicates when I need to work the pattern stitch. And then finally, at the very end, I place some extra stitch markers. These stitch markers represent the number of repeats I have to do. After I finish a repeat, I take one of these stitch markers off of here, and I put that stitch marker here in my work at the end of the repeat. So not only am I able to count how many repeats I've completed, I also know where each repeat ended. And the really nice thing about just using locking stitch markers like this to create a counting chain is you can make this how many rows long that you want. The stitch repeat on this pattern is actually 14 rows, so I have 7 stitch markers. So each stitch marker represents 2 rows. So I move this up every 2 rows. So who needs a fancy counting chain when you can make one with locking stitch markers?